Hey y'all, and welcome back to my channel. In this tutorial we're going to make this beautiful vinyl wrap and glitter tumbler using some vinyl, of course, and glitter from the latest glitter pack at PDB Creative Studio. Y'all are always asking me to use the glitters in the packs on a black surface. I don't have black paint. I don't know why. Maybe I use it a lot. But I didn't have black paint, so I went with the darkest that I have, which is this blue and purple. I did try to combine them and thought maybe it would get darker, but it just made this really beautiful blue. The two paints I used is Purple Delight and Midnight Blue from the Crystalac company. This is their flippin' awesome paints, and I'm really glad that it turned out this color because it matches our vinyl perfect and is really going to be a nice dark base to put our glitters on. This paint goes on super smooth and dries really fast if you take a heat gun to it. So I'm just taking my heat gun on low heat setting, drying this coat up, and I just used the excess on my brush since there wasn't really that many areas I needed to touch up. Just touched up those areas and once again went over with my heat gun. The beautiful vinyl that we are going to use, as well as the two that's in the background, is all from Slide Hustle Etsy shop. They matched these glitters perfectly, and honestly I had a really hard time choosing which vinyl I wanted to use with it, but we did go with this one. I liked the black elements. It really helps all of those pretty colors pop and is also going to give some good contrast between the vinyl and our decal. I'm just going to trim this up and put it like on 3/4 of the cup, maybe a little less. Once I have that trimmed to size, I'm going to trim off a little bit of the backing off the vinyl and then line it up with the top rim or just below that top rim to expose a little bit of that stainless so our epoxy will have something to grab a hold of so it gets a really good seal. Once it's in place and I have everything in line, I'm going to press that exposed piece down and then work my way around the tumbler, pressing the vinyl down as I am pushing the back off. Once my vinyl overlapped, normally I would tape this off, but it does have a wood grain pattern in there, so I just trimmed straight down one of those wood grain stripes, removed the vinyl on top and underneath. I'm also going to be using glitter glue from the Crystalac company to apply my glitters. This glue stays very slightly tacky. It's not like Tack It or the Southern Belle Glitter full glue. It has a very light tack to it once it dries, but it still has something. So even if it does dry up in a couple little spots, your glitter is still going to stick to it. I do like that, and it goes on thin, but since we are going to be applying multiple glitters, I'm going to put this on a little bit thicker than necessary if we were to only be using one glitter. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm just giving myself a little more work time by making this a little thicker. Once we have our glue on, we're going to go in with our glitters in random areas. You will see I go sort of heavier in the center of my spots, and then I fan it out as if I'm ombreing my glitter into the next color. So go heavy in one spot, pull your glitter up, and then just lightly sprinkle it all around so it blends into the following color that you are applying. The first, which is actually a perfect match for our paint, was Blueberry Fields. Then we're going in with Berry Delicious. Now, all 5 of these glitters will be listed down below in the description for you, so you have it typed out and know what to search for whenever they do come available on the PDB Creative Studio website. The date is still to be determined at this moment, but of course, if you are part of my Brittany Barnes Boutique Tumbler art group or part of PDB Creative Studio group, you will be notified both areas whenever these are released individually. There's a few ways to get your hands on these glitters before they are individually released at the discounted bundle price. One of which is to be on the subscription list. I will have all of those details below for you if you want to hop on that list so you do get your hands on the 5 glitters released monthly at a discounted price. The other way is to be part of the PDB Creative Studio group, and there's a post posted in there the afternoon of when these glitter packs are released. You do have to be lightning fast, but it is worth it because normally these glitter packs are absolutely beautiful. Since I have used a non-toxic glue, I'm just going to take my hand and pat it all over my glittered area to pat that glitter down flat. This helps minimize the amount of epoxy we have to use in sanding to get this smooth. I only had to do 1 coat of a little extra incorporated's turbo epoxy, and I did forget to mention I allowed that glue to dry for about 2 hours. I sealed it with Rust-Oleum matte clear coat. Then I applied my epoxy. Once it was completely dry, I sanded really well, and now it is time for our vinyl. I'm using some new Glow Opal vinyl from Teckwrapcraft, as well as the purple metallic bubble-free vinyl. I'm going to trim off what I need to place on my mat, and then we're going to hop over and I'm going to show you how I created the offsets for our striping and our decal. Our Be Kind image is from Creative Fabrica, of course. I have imported that image, set it to 3.5 inches wide, which is standard for what I use for my plumps from the Steel Magnolia. And then I created a 0.045 offset. We're going to add some vinyl striping to our glitter area and where it separates from the vinyl to glitter. We're going to do that by adding a square shape, unlocking the dimensions and putting that at 11.5 inches long, and then we're going to duplicate this stripe and make our sizes from 0.12 by 11.5 inches to 0.04 by 11.5 inches. So the dimensions or the height of all of our stripes is going to be 0.12, 0.10, 0.08, 0.06, and 0.04, all by 11.5 inches. Once I have made all of my stripes, I'm going to separate them with the same distance in between each, giving enough for a little bit of an offset. Once I have them all in line with each other, I'm going to highlight all, attach them, and then we're going to create a 0.035 offset of those as well. I'm also going to be using the Teckwrapcraft Strong Tack Matte. This has really come in handy, especially for these metallic vinyls that tend to want to pull up, the opals, and all of the textured vinyls that I like to use on my designs. I'm going to put all of these in place and pop that into my Cricut machine and get these decals cut. I was just notified as I am doing the voiceover on this tutorial. These glitters will be released today, May 31st at 12 p.m. MST time. I will have my discount code down below for y'all to use as well. In my last tutorial, I used this Teckwrapcraft transfer tape, and I did mention that I wanted to try it on a full wrap. Well, we're going to test it out on these stripes. Whenever you're using a cutting mat to cut a decal, sometimes whenever you try to lift it up on the off the mat, the vinyl can separate from the backing, and that can be frustrating, especially when you have stripes, because it can cause them to kind of warp or just make them a little wonky. So I normally do not weed things on my mat for that reason, but we're going to test it out and see if this transfer tape will grab a hold of this vinyl enough to lift it off without having to flip it over. Hopefully that makes sense, but most of you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. To layer our vinyl, I'm going to go over our top layer first, press that down really well with my squeegee, and then just eyeball it, line it up with our offset. If you have a hard time lining things up, look at that, how smooth it lifted up. Got distracted. Okay, if you have a hard time with lining your offsets up, get yourself a light mat. I will have one linked down below for you. I do have one myself. If I'm being honest, I can't find the cord to it, so I can no longer charge it. But I'm sure I'll find it one day lost in my craft room. But you can use the light pad and the hinge method. If you have a light in behind your image, it's going to show the offset underneath that top layer. Just trim off a little piece of that backing from your top vinyl layer and press the exposed piece of vinyl down once you have your top layer and your offset in place, and then you can press it right on like we would a vinyl wrap around a tumbler. So we keep our stripes perfectly straight. I'm going to do the exact same thing with them. I'm going to lift the top layer of vinyl off of the mat, head over to the offset, put them in place, and then we will attach them all at once to the tumbler. Once I have made it to the seam, which I also lined up with the vinyl seam on the back so they're nice and flush with each other, I removed the transfer tape to the portion that we are going to overlap, made sure it was in place, pressed that down really well, and then we're going to trim right down the seam and remove the excess vinyl on top. Typically, I remove the vinyl on the bottom as well, but something with the humidity and when it gets hot here in North Carolina, it causes the vinyl to shrink a little bit once it is on the tumbler. I don't know the science behind that, but it happens. So I'm leaving the excess underneath. So if it does shrink up just a little bit once it is spinning on my turner, we're gonna have that little bit of excess underneath and we will not have a gap in our seam. Once I have pressed my vinyl down really well, I'm going to go in with 2 final coats of epoxy. I used ALE Epoxy Turbo for the first coat and regular ALE for the second coat. That glow is incredible on this opal vinyl, and I think this tumbler turned out beautiful, and it's got shine for days, especially with all of the dark elements on here. I hope that y'all have enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. All materials I have used will be listed in the description with some coupon codes. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. That really helps us out. Thank you all so much, and we will see you next time.